Now, the world is facing unprecedented changes, some of which BRICS nations are looking to solve. During a session in Johannesburg on promoting innovation in global governance, delegates are looking at the role multilateralism plays in member economies. CGTN's Yolisa and Njamela has more from Johannesburg.
The one-day seminar packed over 100 senior officials and think tanks from the BRICS countries. It's aimed at promoting the institutionalization of BRICS experiences in governance and expand exchange and cooperation. Delegates attending the meeting hope to share experiences on how to build effective global governance. Many here agreed that governance should be prioritized in addressing challenges of development.
We still have to see a metaphor of political conversation which seeks to give coherence to an alternative voice to the voice that is hegemonizing the world order at the moment. We face today the task of addressing the challenges that are facing the world governance system, and we ought to be seen to be addressing these challenges in ways that are coherent.
The leaders here agreed that multilateralism remains a key policy for the BRICS formation.
We respect the diversity of the world. Multilateralism is the kind of hallmark needed. Countries should uphold the banner of multilateralism. We must maintain a multilateral trading system, strengthen coordination in macroeconomic policies, and stay committed to reforming global economic governance. The world is diverse in nature, and unity and diversity is key. All countries are equal in their sovereignty, opportunity, etc. We can learn from each other.
The theme of the conference this year is contributing BRICS wisdom to global governance in the interest of the people.
The discussions from this seminar will be featured in the Leadership Summit that is due to take place here at the Sandton Convention Center later this month. Yolisa and Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now, BRICS trade ministers are meeting in South Africa today ahead of the summit to be held later this month. China, Brazil, Russia, India and the host country South Africa have been mending economic ties with Beijing, opening up its market for imports member states. For more on this now, I'm joined live from Johannesburg by economist Chris Hart. Chris, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Now, just yesterday, we heard the announcement of a newly signed declaration dubbed the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Can you break this down for us?
Yeah, certainly. I think one needs to appreciate that the Fourth Industrial Revolution is something that is busy gripping the global economy at the moment. One needs to appreciate, one of the words that gets associated with the Fourth Industrial Revolution is in fact disruption. I don't think it is in fact disruption if one actually embraces it. I think a better term to describe the Fourth Industrial Revolution is mass customization. It's actually enabling through technology and information the ability to mass customize and actually for the consumer from the bottom up to actually determine what they particularly want. And that's a big change from, let's call it a 20th century business model where you've got companies or institutions that devise policies and products and push them down marketing channels. Right. This is where the customers are actually pushing up marketing channels and where we actually need to appreciate the business models are changing and we can embrace.
Right. Well, China, though, is the dominant economy of all the BRICS countries here. So do tell us about the significance of having the second biggest economy in the world as a part of this group of nations.
Yeah, I think it's important because it helps to provide jurisdiction competition. And the BRICS formation is effectively, you could say, a bit of a counterbalance to the G7. Which is the industrialized countries. The BRICS certainly comprise the most populous countries of the world and some of the biggest markets. especially when we see that firstly, the order of the world is changing, and the technology is also changing the way we can do business. A lot of the opening of the African economy and the explosion of growth that we've seen in the last 2 decades in Africa is in fact technology driven. The advent of the cellular telephone has given people in the remotest village access to the modern economy, and we're seeing a lot of that innovation across Africa. And I think that Africa, where we're seeing bottom up, that mass customization that I was talking about, coming from the bottom up, helping to change the way we do business, where the traditional business models haven't actually met the needs in the past. The traditional banking models, for instance, the traditional, even the traditional telephony companies have not met the needs, and we're seeing it coming from the bottom up with new technology.
Well, the BRICS are comprising the biggest economies in the world today, though, and now on the sidelines of the BRICS trade meetings, South Africa has joined other countries, including China, in condemning the Trump administration's stance on tariffs. Do developing economy countries have room to maneuver against the United States?
Yeah, I think the problem that one has with the United States is they're busy acting on a unilateral basis, and I think China is counterbalancing that on a more multilateral basis. One really needs to make sure that markets are open for developing countries. It does not help the developing countries if markets are closed. We do need those channels open, and I think at the end of the day, the countries that have the trade relations will also have the mutual and influence. So if we see what's happening as trade is shifting more to the east and more becoming more China-centric from an African point of view, so the Chinese influence in Africa is busy eclipsing the Western influence, which has been dominant in the last 40, 50 years. We are seeing a shift in that, and it's a big shift that's taking place. In terms of that trade, we also note that China is busy driving their Silk Route initiative as well, which is outside the BRICS structure as well, but it's actually an additional element where China is in fact becoming a lot more dominant in trade, certainly more than, even though the US is a bigger economy, their trade is in fact with the rest of the world not as influenced and not as dominant as China's is.
Right, Chris Hart joining us there from Johannesburg. Thank you on your insights into the BRICS grouping.